in the pursuit of truth and common sense in an unbelievable world. You're listening to the Right Mind podcast with your host, Todd Schowalter.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Mind. I'm Todd Schowalter. Tonight, my guest is Mike Rogers. He's a trucker, and trucking has been in the news lately. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad. I'm enjoying this nice weather about an hour west of Odessa, Texas.
Outside of Odessa, Texas. Okay. Well, I mentioned last week I'm a Texas native, so say hello to everybody for me. I actually only lived there until I was about 2 hours old, so I can't take that much credit.
Shame on your parents. Shame on your parents for taking you out of Texas.
Yeah, I know. That's the place to be. Well, speaking of Texas, you're there. A lot of trucks down there. The big story right now are all the trucking convoys. We know that a lot of it's going on in Canada, but I understand it's also coming to our states. What's your experience with that?
I haven't seen it personally, but the company I work for, we do go into Canada. And about a week ago, I got a phone call from our central dispatch asking if I was vaxxed. Answered their question, I'm not. And so obviously I can't go into Canada. So I don't know, what was it, 2 days ago? The owner of the company sent out an email. I had to laugh, trying to bribe us with $1,000 if we got vaxxed, because I guess it's affecting our contracts in Canada. So
really,
personally, that's all the experience I've had with it, other than keeping up with it in the news.
Okay, well, so that's the main thing. But one of the things that's quite a big issue right now, is you mentioned the news, is just the lack of news. It's almost like it's been a blackout to everybody here in the States about what's actually going on. Now, do you actually have some so-called inside information from the people that you work with about what the real deal is?
No, I don't. I search YouTube and find videos. Breitbart News.
Right.
I just caught up on a couple articles. They're pretty good about keeping me up to date on that. But most of the time, I find these little snippet videos from some of the truckers up in Canada. But you're right. I'm not hearing about it anywhere else.
Yeah, it seems like I said, it's almost like a blackout. Now, they're talking now about, possibly doing the same thing, if they're not already, here in the United States. It's supposed to, I believe, there's a convoy going along the southern border or close to it. That's supposed to end up in Washington, D.C., I believe, in March. Do you know about that? Are you going to be a part of that?
Well, I just was catching up on some news before I came on with you, and I just saw that they're supposed to be assembling in California this weekend to kind of disrupt the Super Bowl. And then they're going to head to D.C. and pick up truckers along the way. I called into a radio show last week, and in my opinion, there's one guy in this country that could solve a lot of it here. Rob Lowe with Prime Inc.
Rob Lowe?
Yeah, I know. That's actually
not Rob Lowe from the Brad Pack. We're thinking somebody else, right?
The owner of Prime.
Prime. Okay.
Prime Inc. They have they're probably $2-3 billion with a B. Have about 4,500 trucks. They do tanker, they do flatbed, and they do reefer, refrigerated units.
Mm-hmm.
I call it in my opinion, if I were Rob Lowe, I would send every one of my trucks to DC.
Right.
I'd pay every one of my drivers for a week. I would send every truck to DC to make a point that if we want to, we can shut this whole thing down.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think the truckers, the truck drivers, we know the power we have. The owners of our companies aren't going to do anything about it. They're not going to sacrifice that revenue.
Mm-hmm.
The guy I work for, $100 million company, about 200 trucks. If he's looking to hire 100 more drivers.
Right.
My advice to him, hire 12 recruiters, then take every one of us and send us to DC. The publicity he would get would be amazing. Everybody would want to work for someone like that.
Mm-hmm.
Until an owner stands up and does something like that, I mean, you're putting it just on us truckers. We can only do so much. I'm in a company truck. I can't join that convoy.
Right, right. Okay, that's a good point because
If I was an owner operator and I owned my own truck, I could.
right.
But as a company driver, there's nothing I can do.
Well, what I mean, okay, is just from being on the inside though. What is the main objective here? Is it just obviously we have the mandates and everything going on? I mean, are they representing other people? I mean, is it just the truckers, or are they doing this on behalf of a lot of other people?
I think it's, well, obviously in Canada, you've heard it, like I've heard it. What, 90% of them are vaccinated, but it's the mandate part, crossing the border. So just like our company, like I can't cross the border because I'm not vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of their truckers can come into the U.S. because they're all, but then they have to quarantine or something, from what I understand.
Right.
But it if
It's
the Supreme Court hadn't struck down the OSHA mandate and that had gone through, our company has over 100 drivers. I wouldn't have got vaxxed. I might have lost my job.
right.
Uh,
Well,
Trudeau can fix all of this. Now they're blocking bridges in Michigan and other bridges into the U.S. All he's got to do is drop the mandates, drop all the COVID restrictions, and all the truckers will go back to doing what they want to do, which is truck.
right, right. And it seems like, I mean, there's some breakdown going on now because I think people are finally, fighting back. I mean, I was tired of it from the beginning. I mean, everybody that knows me know that, there's no secret to that. But you finally have people pushing back, but
And who would have thought it would have been Canadians?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the Canadians. I mean, well, more power to them. The hockey and convoys. But you
Yeah.
got all this stuff going. Another thing. I mean, all the everybody's mad because you go to the grocery store, you go to the Walmart. I mean, all the shelves are empty. Okay, now obviously. I mean, that's got to be part of the trucking issue. I mean, what's is it just because we have a lack of drivers, or is it because you're not being allowed to pick up what you're supposed to pick up? I mean, do you know what's going on with that?
It depends on where the product's produced. I read that it's affecting I'm listening to business radio today and understand that the parts aren't able to come from Canada into the U.S. and it's affecting our auto industry right now.
Right.
So anything that's coming across the border, it's going to have an effect. Today I went to a Love's. I asked the girl, "Is there any milk?" No milk. I always go in now wondering what I can't find, and I don't get it.
Right.
These things aren't coming. These things aren't coming from Canada. It's a lack of drivers, but I guess at the production facilities, it's also, COVID, what we just went through with Omicron or whatever, and staff's not there, production personnel's not there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're saying there's an 80,000 trucker shortage in the country. I've heard in the next however many years, it's going to be 1 million. They're talking about, and this is inside, and you may have heard this. We were talking about this last night. I parked and went in and had a beer, whatever, talking to some other truckers, and they're thinking of allowing 18-year-olds to get their CDLs.
Right, right.
You have to be 21 at this point. And we all were talking about how we watch these young kids in these trucks and just shake our head like, what are you guys doing? We can't imagine what's going to happen if they allow 18-year-olds to come into the industry.
Yeah. Well, they wanted 16-year-olds to vote.
To vote, right. I mean, that's a desperation move. I get it. Again, a lot of this would be solved in Canada, if they drop all COVID restrictions.
Right.
That would open everything back up, and who knows how that would affect us here.
Okay. Well, now have you been? Because I mean, Florida. I mean, DeSantis, he seems to have his head on straight. Well, I mean, have you done any trucking down there? Because apparently things are more lax. The ports are open. Things are getting in and out. I mean, have you noticed different areas of the country that you've been to that have been easier than others, so to speak?
Well, I can tell you what part was rougher. I took a load out to Washington State. I was out in Oregon and Seattle, and those people out there are crazy. It I wanted to get a Subway sandwich, and I was near Seattle, and I mean there must have been 10 flyers pasted up to the window about masks and this, that, and the other. And then in front of the Subway, there was a table before you even got into where all the seating area was. And there was a hand sanitizer pump. There was another flyer. There was 2 boxes of masks. And I walked in with none of it. And they said, you have to have a mask on. I'm like, no, I don't. I said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And right. We can't serve you. So I turned around and walked out.
Oh, I had the same thing.
When you get to Texas, you don't see any of that. So
sanity is there, right? Yeah. I walked into the last weekend. Believe it or not, I was dragged into. No, I actually wanted to go to a mall because we had some snow and I was losing my mind. And first time in 10 years I've been to a mall. Make a long story short, I go into the Apple store. Same thing. You have to wear a mask. I said, no, I'm not doing that. They said, well, you can't be here if you can't stay here unless you put a mask on. And I walked out. I'm ready to buy another computer. And I said, well, I said, no, I'm not playing this game. Enough is enough.
So I don't understand. I mean, you saw the study that probably just came out that, I don't know, was it one of the prestigious colleges did, where they did a study and showed that masks never worked.
No,
they didn't work. No. They didn't stop the virus.
No.
You and I, we knew that. And that there's still, I don't get it. It's all I can do when I'm in a truck stop and I see a trucker wearing one, to tell him to take the stupid mask off.
Right.
Out of respect, I just keep my mouth shut. But I don't, there are certain parts of the country, and it's mostly that Oregon, Washington State. When I was out there,
right.
I was just in California last week. Beginning of this week, I was in California. Yeah, it wasn't as bad in California. Expensive, but I mean, I walked around. Nobody said I had to put a mask on.
Well, it's obviously
it was only in Washington. It was only up in Washington and Oregon and Washington where they were, they were pretty strict.
It's obviously become, it's more of a political issue now than a health issue, and anybody that says it isn't, really, it doesn't. They don't have their head in reality.
They're being intellectually dishonest.
Right. Something to that effect. Right. Now going back to the trucking, some of these, we've got all these boats and barges and stuff out in the Pacific Ocean, and apparently they're not getting in. When you go to these docks and you pick up freight, I mean, is that beginning to be more back to normal now? I mean, are the boats actually able to unload their freight?
Not on the West Coast. On the East Coast, what the Port of Georgia did is they secured a large lot. I don't know how many square feet, but it enabled them to store the containers. I can't remember the number, but that alleviated their backlog. The problem out in California is they have nowhere to put these containers, number one. They don't have the truckers to get them out of there, number two. My understanding is I'm trying to think if it's the number of hours that they're not loading trucks, something to that effect. 20% of the hours.
Well, is this all COVID related? I mean, are they not doing this for this COVID stuff, or why?
Well, they had port workers that, Omicron were out, so they were hiring. Nobody wants to work. Hiring's an issue, they said. But it's funny, Todd, because it's all West Coast issues. DeSantis talked about, using the Florida ports. Georgia has done a great job alleviating the backlog. They're moving containers. So on the East Coast, Georgia and Florida, things are starting to progress. They're not making any progress in California.
No, and it just seems, I mean, it's all screwed up out there, period, in my opinion. But when you have like these boats and these barges and everything just sitting out in the ocean, I mean, come on. I mean, just from a logistics standpoint, I mean, getting things from one point to the other, I mean, it's difficult, but I mean, it does, even with COVID and everything, I don't understand how the whole system could break down, or at least not be restored in a relatively normal period of time. It just seems like this is going on forever.
Well, from a trucker perspective, when the Supreme Court struck down the OSHA, where OSHA was going to enforce the pending mandate, that took we were worried about that. So that took that issue and set it aside. Now it's back to the beginning where you can't hire enough truckers.
Mm-hmm.
Like our company, they're looking to hire 100 new drivers. The pay is amazing. How they cannot find 100 truckers blows my mind. I'm making more money now, and I've been doing this for 6 years. Started flatbed, and now I'm hauling cab and chassis. I'm making more money now than I've ever made.
Right.
I don't understand. I don't get it. My sister's an attorney. I bet I make more money than she does.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I've heard. And so you've got all these people, and that's just it. You have people. It seems like everything's in place. The jobs are there. The pay is fantastic. I'm assuming I don't know if you get benefits or something or not. I mean,
you get the whole shebang. You get benefits, 401k match.
So you get everything. And,
Yep.
But still, I mean, what else is it going to take? I mean,
so I'll give you a quick example from a money perspective. So I started with Prime and flatbed, and then I got a couple years under my belt, excellent driving record. And then I started bouncing around a little bit. 55, 60, 62 cents a mile. I stay out, making 72, 75,000 a year, right? That was a good year.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, 92 cents a mile, loaded or unloaded. I'll pull between $140,000 and $150,000 this year.
Wow. And they can't fill the jobs.
He has 100 positions. He's gonna max out at 250 drivers. Where I think at 100 did they tell me we were at 130? We lost a lot through COVID. I think some of the older drivers maybe.
Right.
They took a pretty big hit, but they're actively recruiting, and I don't get it.
No, it just doesn't make any sense.
The money is absolutely insane that truckers can make right now.
Right. And just from what you've seen, I mean, there's no bureaucracy or there's no red tape. There's nothing that would to keep these people from taking these jobs. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, like we don't have any regulations holding other than the typical trucking regulations, but there's no COVID related that affects us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Once the Supreme Court struck down that mandate, there's nothing affecting us COVID related other than for companies like this that go across the border. We can't unless your drivers are vaccinated. And I'd say we probably have 10% of our drivers are vaccinated. So yeah, they're scrambling it's going to affect their revenue.
Right.
Even if we could, we wouldn't be able to get over. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the backup when they blocked the bridge there at Detroit.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to get across that bridge into Canada. I mean, I read that there was a 4.5, 5 hour delay to get into Canada. I'm not sitting in that.
Right. No, and it just seems like, I mean, it's finally starting to get to a tipping point for people that just haven't been able to open their eyes, and it's starting. I mean, but nobody again. I mean, I don't think until all this stuff went down realized just how vital that whole industry is. I mean,
well, that's why I go back to what I said. If someone like Rob Lowe, because he's such a diverse company with his flatbed division, which is all construction materials, his tanker division, which is food related probably, and then his reefer division, which is frozen foods. If he took every one of his trucks and sent them to DC and said, you guys are going to fix this and you're going to fix it now, or we're really going to show you how we can fix it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I wish an owner of a company had the cojones to do that. Because you mentioned earlier, you're not hearing anything, seeing it on the news, there's a blackout. You couldn't ignore that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If he sent 4,500 trucks to DC, everybody else joined in with him. You want to send a signal that this has got to end. That's how you do it.
Well, and that brings me back to what I was saying before. I mean, it would end for everybody, correct? I mean, so I think
if they did that, it would solve this across the country. Everybody, it would. That's because we know how crucial we are.
Sure.
And you hear it every once in a while. And they kind of, these guys are crucial, but they're just a bunch of redneck truckers, whatever. We know how crucial we are.
Uh-huh.
the entire economy's on our backs. I mean, it's going to take an owner to do that has some sway, and it could solve this across the board.
Right. Well, it seems to be
I'm thinking if Trudeau finally relented and did the right thing and set his ego aside or whatever and dropped all the COVID restrictions, I think that would trickle down to us, because we would see how it could turn things around. If he does it, he's not, whatever. But I keep hearing it's causing this problem. Okay, well, drop the COVID restrictions.
Right.
And you're back to normal, and the truckers are trucking again and goods are flowing again. That's all you have to do. That's the solution. Drop every COVID related restriction. And I think if he did it,
that would
affect us too.
Well, and so, I mean, do you think that would have a domino effect? I mean, do you think once would then the hiring pick up? I mean, you think people would be going back to work? I mean, you think okay, well,
I think it would be a turning. I think he has an opportunity. He's already damaged it. I mean, he's already backed himself in a corner. He'll never be able to save face, but he's a politician. They could spin this. He could drop every single COVID restriction, get Canada rolling again, gets us rolling again, and he could turn around and spin it, which he would do, and take credit for it.
Well, how fast, in your opinion, I mean, if that were to happen, and it seems little by little it's starting, not fast enough, how fast do you think, just from your industry, that things could get back to, I wouldn't even say 100%, but get back to, like, say, 80%, like it was back in the good old days?
The good news is winter's almost in our rear view. Things start rolling. I mean, we can't do a lot in the winter, depending on what you're driving. We get winter behind us. I'd say in 6 months, we'd be in good shape by this Christmas.
Right. And why do you think what's holding people back? I mean, I've got my opinions. I mean, what do you think is, obviously it's become not just a health situation. It's a lot more political, but what do you think? Personally, what do you think is holding people back from, pulling that switch?
They're just so dug in ideologically, but I believe we're in the majority.
The majority, as far as okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think politically, on the left, they're Fauci won't stop. I saw an interview, a girl in Ottawa. First of all, if you don't want to be subjected to those, I know it's Canada, but if you don't want to be subjected to those kind of things, don't live in the capital city of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. She said she couldn't go get her coffee. She felt threatened because she couldn't go to Starbucks and get her coffee.
Oh, well.
It's that mentality. That mentality. If they don't come off of that and realize the bigger picture here, and you ask me what I think's holding them back, you know it as well as I do.
Mm-hmm.
They just won't acknowledge that, okay, maybe this isn't right and we should do something different. Until that happens, and I think you're starting to see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's holding them back.
Yeah, well, and again, it's starting to shift slowly, more than ever. But I don't think I think you needed something like this that was really going to say, to force some hands here, because you've got, obviously, you're the transportation, you get the goods to the people. What as far as the people is the manufacturers, the farmers, everybody else that you're picking up all this stuff from. What are they doing? Are they backed up?
Well, if they can't get the raw materials.
So it's okay. So that's a good point. So it's all one thing leads to another. So again, right. Until all this started, I don't think people realized just how vital this was. And I'm excited about it. I think people are that the left is trying to spin this, that it's like some insurrection and all this other stuff. No, it's not. I think it's great that you've got people that have a backbone in an industry showing how vital they are, standing up to all this corruption that's going on, And we need that. It's like they're like superheroes. I mean, they're the ones coming to the rescue to say, "Hey, this has got to stop." Is that what
you mentioned how they're portraying insurrection, things like that, calling truckers racists, and Trudeau's used that a couple of times up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting last night at the bar having a beer with another gentleman, African American, and we were talking. We got on the race topic, and we both were like, truckers are some of the least racist people in the world. If you ever went with us for a week, all the interactions we have with people in the truck stops, we're dealing with truckers who are African American, truckers who are Muslims, truckers who are Asians, truckers who are Indians, and you know what? There's no tension.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no tension, and we would do anything to help another trucker.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear when they talk about us that way, they have the media on their side. We know.
Yeah, and that's just it. And that's the point of this show. We try to blow through all the subjective media that is brainwashing not only the country, but the world at this point. And I mean, this particular show, my show, has been flagged, and certain things they don't want to get out. And all I'm doing is talking with people like yourself that are expressing what's really happening from the front lines.
On the ground, seeing it every day.
And and apparently that doesn't work with their narrative, and we don't appreciate it, or we don't want it, we're going to shut you down. But and that's what I'm going for, because I think I've said on other shows, I've talked on a variety of topics, and I've always said every person I've had on, at the end we've come away with, we just want everybody to get along. Okay, nobody wants this. All this hostility, nobody wants it.
So the African American gentleman left. I'm still there. And a Mexican guy walks in. We had a great conversation, shared a beer. An Asian guy came in, sat down next to us, had a great conversation, shared a beer. That's how diverse trucking is.
Right.
We didn't go to our corners. We all hung out at the bar and had a great time chatting about trucking and the same things you and I are talking about.
But that doesn't sell. That doesn't sell.
No, it doesn't fit their narrative.
No, it doesn't. And that's a shame.
Because they can't. We're the least divisive people, truckers. I mean, we get irritated with each other, but that's the extent of it. I mean, I don't know.
It's incredible. We could talk a lot more about this, but I mean, you're bringing it in from the front lines. You've done a lot here for us tonight, Mike. I mean, you've shown that, everybody, all this racism and all this other crap isn't going on in trucking. You guys aren't rednecks. You're very professional. It's a fantastic industry that's literally saving countries as we speak. So I couldn't, I have the highest regard for you.
One last thing. I mean, you see it when you mentioned the manufacturers. The same thing when I was flatbed and I'd go in and pick up a steel coil or steel I-beams or drywall or whatever. It's just as diverse. I mean, I know we're back on that issue, but it's just as diverse and on the factory floor. And you're working with a forklift operator to get your load right on your truck. It doesn't matter what color I am. It doesn't matter what color he is. I mean, we're all getting along trying to accomplish the same goal. We just shake our heads when we hear the stuff Trudeau says, because we know it's not true.
Well, and it's not just Trudeau. I mean, it's our media here too, because they love shaking that jar. They love causing the friction, because the divisiveness is what sells.
You're going to hear it if this convoy that's supposed to start in California,
right,
this Sunday and work its way to DC.
Right.
If it's as successful, you're going to hear we're thugs, we're troublemakers. I will say one thing. I wish truckers would stop littering.
Littering?
Yeah.
Throwing things out of the truck?
Yeah, you'll see it at on ramps and off ramps. I wish they would take care of that issue. But aside from that, you're going to hear all kinds of horrible things about us if this convoy works.
Well, yeah, and that's just it.
I mean, they're going to pull the same thing that he's doing up there against the Canadian truckers.
Because you're breaking the system. I mean, you're breaking down what this overall plan or objective was, and I think it's fantastic. you're bringing it right home, showing that you have the strength because, your distribution, your logistics, you take care of all that stuff. And if you can't get stuff to where they need to be, it shuts down. I think it's fantastic.
What could also happen is like what I have on my truck right now came from Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Suzu trucks. They came up. Actually, no, I'm sorry, they didn't. But I've picked up trucks before and Caterpillar equipment, things like that come from Mexico. So, if this convoy does happen and you take X number of trucks off the road, you're going to affect freight coming in from Mexico too.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are they affecting freight coming down into the country from Canada, but this could affect freight coming up into the country from Mexico. So if they don't handle this correctly, you think things are bad now?
Right.
It could be a couple times worse.
Well, maybe it's time for a wake-up call. I know.
You know what? It exactly is. And if you're starting to see these states dropping mandate or COVID restrictions, which is good, but a lot more need to.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I don't like seeing the shelves empty and, we're going to have milk and bread and things like that. But I got to tell you, if that's what we got to do to stand up for what's going on with you guys, I'm all for it. I'll go without the milk. I don't like milk.
And that's why I said it. I wish someone like Rob Lowe would just suck it up for a week and make a point and bring everything to a screeching halt and make them realize if they don't stop, this is the power we have.
Yes, well, and more power to you, pardon the pun. Any final words? We're just about out of time, but I really appreciate you joining me here tonight. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
Sun's going down on me, so I'm probably
sun is going down.
There.
We're losing our lighting here. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Mike Rogers, he's a trucker. He's in Texas right now. He's going across country and he goes all over the place, actually. And there's a lot that's about to go down if things don't change, apparently. Thank you for joining me. I'm Todd Schowalter, and you've been watching and listening to Right Mind. And remember, if you don't have a right mind, you don't have a mind at all. Till next time, bye-bye.
This has been the Right Mind Podcast with Todd Schowalter.